Have you ever shared a piece of yourself thinking it would bring you closer to someone, only to feel exposed afterward in a world that praises authenticity and demands vulnerability? No one warns you about the silent eyes watching, measuring, and waiting. What feels like openness to you can look like opportunity to someone else. And, as Stoicism teaches, not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Machiavelli knew this well. The most dangerous mistakes are not made with cruelty, but with sincerity. They come dressed as honesty, but leave you powerless. In this video, we uncover the hidden cost of being too open in a world built on strategy. Watch closely. Not everything honest is harmless. 1. Revealing too much makes you easy to wound. Let us begin with a mistake so subtle that it hides beneath the mask of honesty, and yet so dangerous that it quietly hands your enemies the tools to defeat you. It is the tendency to over-disclose your wounds. In today's world, people are encouraged to share their pain, to expose their struggles in the name of connection. Social platforms reward it, conversations applaud it. Leaders are even trained to do it, believing that transparency will earn respect. But Marcus Aurelius would caution against mistaking exposure for strength. He knew that true composure lies not in public displays of struggle, but in silent mastery of the self. Imagine a man speaking openly in a room of colleagues about his failures, thinking that vulnerability will inspire loyalty. But what he cannot see is the quiet calculation behind the nods. The ones who smile now may remember his words later, not with empathy, but with strategic interest. Because when you show people where you bleed, you show them exactly where to strike. You may believe you're being real, but in the minds of others, you've become legible, and legibility breeds danger. This is not a rejection of truth. It is a demand for discipline. Speak of your wounds only when they have become scars. Speak of your hardship only when it no longer holds power over you. A Stoic does not spill his struggles in every direction hoping for comfort. He reflects, he endures. And when the time's right, he speaks with clarity, not from suffering, but from victory. When you share your story, do it not as a plea for understanding, but as a quiet proof of survival. Preserve your mystery, withhold your chaos. Because in a world where perception is a battlefield, your silence can be your armor, and your restraint can command more respect than your confession ever could. Show the world not how you broke, but how you stood back up. That is where your power lives. 2. Expecting fairness blinds you to reality. The second mistake is one of the most subtle traps in human interaction. It wears the face of morality, but often leads to quiet self-betrayal. It is the belief that fairness is shared, that if you give with sincerity, others will match you, that if you play clean, others will feel compelled to do the same. This is the path of the well-intentioned, but it is also the path of the easily controlled, because not everyone plays by the same code. While you're extending goodwill, someone else is calculating advantage. While you're yielding ground in the name of peace, they're measuring just how little resistance you offer. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should be mindful of the nature of those we deal with, not to judge harshly, but to see clearly. And what is more dangerous than assuming that others live by the same principles of justice and restraint you try to uphold? The Stoic does not expect virtue from those who have not cultivated it. He does not offer his trust to those who have not shown discipline in the face of temptation, yet many people fall into the habit of assuming virtue where none has been proven. They give benefit without observation. They compromise without testing character. And in doing so, they make themselves easy to guide, to push, and to manipulate. Imagine someone in a negotiation who believes that by being the bigger person, they will win respect. They make concessions quickly. They speak with open hands. But across the table is someone who reads kindness as weakness, That person now knows exactly what to do. They apply pressure, they delay, they take more, not because they are evil, but because they are opportunistic. And in that moment, your fairness has been repurposed into your leash. A Stoic does not abandon fairness. He refines it. He does not lead with it. He tests the ground first. He lets others reveal their intentions through their actions, not their words. And only then does he choose his path. Some people earn principle, others require strategy, and wisdom is knowing which is which. So do not mistake your good nature for a universal law. The world does not bend to your integrity. You bend it back through clarity, precision, and strength. That is not cruelty. That is awareness. Know the players, learn the game, and never assume fairness is shared. Only then will your virtue become untouchable. 3. Showing emotion gives away control. The final mistake is the one that seems the most natural, the most human, and yet it is the one that quietly undresses your entire fortress. It is the instinctive urge to react emotionally when provoked, especially when the insult is subtle, veiled, or socially ambiguous. You do not scream, you do not lash out, but your posture tightens, your breath shifts, your tone sharpens. You explain yourself just a little too much. You correct the record. You overexert to defend your name. And in that moment, you believe you are standing up for yourself. But what you are really doing is offering a live demonstration of how to move you. You are showing your enemy the exact lever that tilts your balance. In the eyes of a Stoic, your emotions are not weaknesses, but they are not to be broadcasted freely. The wise man feels deeply but moves slowly. When someone tries to provoke you, the real test is not whether you feel frustration. The test is whether you grant the instigator the satisfaction of access to your energy, access to your rhythm, access to your internal state. This is where Marcus Aurelius would remind us that the obstacle becomes the way, and the insult becomes the teacher. Not because we answer it, but because we train ourselves to observe it with stillness. The insult reveals the other's intention. Your silence reveals your control. Machiavelli would say the same in different language. He would advise you to wear a mask, not to deceive, but to preserve. He did not teach repression, he taught redirection. When they attempt to test your composure, you offer not a protest, but a pause. A silence so composed it unsettles, a smirk so calm it confuses, because in that moment they are no longer sure if their tactic worked. And that uncertainty shifts the power. The battlefield becomes psychological. You are no longer playing checkers. You're holding the board still and letting them make the first mistake. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone gives you a backhanded compliment in a crowded room. Something like, "You've really improved lately." Most would defend themselves, try to prove they've always been capable. But the Stoic approach is simpler. You meet their gaze, nod slowly, and reply with, "Interesting perspective." Nothing more, no emotion, no fuel, and suddenly, it is they who are on unstable ground. You have remained unreadable, unshaken. You have offered no map, no weakness to study, and in doing so, you remain untouchable. This is the art of holding your truth back until it is earned. Not to isolate yourself, but to ensure your value is not given freely to those who seek to use it against you. Because the real danger is not in being misunderstood. It is in being too easily understood. The more predictable you are, the more controllable you become. Familiarity may win friends, but it never earns fear. And sometimes, to protect your peace, you must let others misunderstand you, let them underestimate, let them assume, because power lies not in proving your strength, but in withholding the evidence of it until the moment matters. In the end, Machiavelli would not tell you to become ruthless. He would tell you to become unreadable. Because power is not preserved through aggression. It is preserved through stillness, through mystery, through the quiet discipline of guarding your emotional gates. Let the world guess who you are. Let them search for your reaction and find nothing. And in that void, you rise beyond their grasp. Speaking softly destroys your strength. Let us now confront a quieter, more insidious mistake, one that most people commit without ever realizing they have surrendered anything at all. It does not come through action or visible defeat. It begins in the smallest openings of speech, the self-erasing phrases, the soft disclaimers, the instinct to preface your ideas with, "This might sound dumb," or "I'm probably wrong but," or "I don't really know much." To the average ear, these might seem like humility, politeness, even charm. But to the Stoic and to Machiavelli alike, such language is not modesty. It is self-permission to be dismissed. It is a quiet signal that you have not yet owned the authority of your presence. And in a room full of competitors, of hidden agendas and unspoken power struggles, that signal is not ignored. It is exploited. Imagine a scenario. You offer a brilliant insight in a meeting, but you begin with, "I'm not sure if this matters," but in doing so, you strip your own voice before it even takes form. You gave others permission to ignore you. You told the room not to take you seriously, and they will follow that cue. Not because your words lack value, but because your delivery lacks belief. Marcus Aurelius warned us that opinion is what gives weight to injury, and in this case, your own opinion of yourself, revealed through your words, becomes the first injury. A Stoic speaks not to please, but to express what must be said, and when he speaks, he does so with conviction, not noise. The correction is not arrogance, it is precision. You strip away the preambles, you say what you mean, you let your words stand clean and clear, and when challenged, you do not over-defend, you do not retreat into apologies. Instead, you hold the line. You ask calmly, "What makes you say that?" Or, "How would you approach it differently?" Not to trap, but to clarify, to observe, to lead the conversation by anchoring it in composure. This is not theatrical, it is deliberate. It is the art of framing, the discipline of not giving your power away through unnecessary disclaimers. Now let us take this deeper. The next form of this mistake is cloaked in the appearance of self-awareness. You casually admit your flaws in public settings. You say, "I know I talk too much," or "I'm not great with people," or "I tend to overthink everything." You believe that you are being authentic, maybe even relatable, but in truth, you have handed the enemy a script. You have loaded the arrows for them, and all they need to do now is wait for the moment to fire. A peer says, "She admitted herself she's not good with people. Maybe she's not suited for leadership." A manager says, "He said under pressure he gets flustered." Can we trust him in high-stakes negotiations? The truth you offered in trust now becomes the evidence used against you, not because you lied, but because you misjudged the setting. You narrated your own weaknesses, and you lost control of the story. So what would a Stoic do? What would Machiavelli advise? They would never suggest denying reality, but they would insist on shaping it. You do not erase your nature, you reframe it. You do not say, "I overthink." You say, "I examine things thoroughly before acting." You do not say, "I am not good with people." You say, "I invest deeply in a few rather than spreading myself thin." This is not deceit. It is the strategic clarity of self-definition. Because if you do not define yourself, someone else will, and their version will serve their interests, not yours. And finally, the most invisible layer of this mistake, the one that emerges not in words, but in facial expressions, tone shifts, and micro-reactions. It is the emotional transparency you display in hostile environments. You are in a meeting. Someone makes a subtle jab, a joke with a blade beneath it. You feel the heat rise in your chest. You respond faster, louder. You explain yourself, not because it is needed, but because you want to clear the air. You check out emotionally, thinking your silence is strength. But the truth is already exposed. The jab landed. The reaction was visible. And worst of all, the one who delivered it saw that it worked. Machiavelli would be ruthless in his warning here. If they can read you, they can run you. You have become a map, a collection of tells, and the worst enemy is not the one who strikes immediately. It is the one who observes, waits, memorizes the layout of your reactions, and saves that knowledge for the moment it costs you most. What is the solution? You become unreadable, not by pretending, but by disciplining your openness. You let the provocation pass through you like smoke. You breathe, you observe, you delay, you become intentional. Every word becomes a choice, every silence a test. And in that delay, the game changes, the power shifts, because now you are not reacting, you are assessing, you are no longer the instrument being played. You are the composer of the room's rhythm. There is a kind of stillness that commands attention, a kind of composure that draws curiosity. People do not know what you are thinking, and that mystery becomes strength. You are not cold. You are controlled. You are not distant. You are deliberate. This is not detachment. This is disciplined presence. In a world obsessed with transparency, it is easy to believe that sincerity is virtue in itself. But Stoicism teaches us discernment. It teaches us that truth without timing is exposure. That vulnerability without boundaries is not strength, but surrender. Your words, your self-description, your emotional state must be offered with intent, not by reflex. Because once you understand that language is a battlefield, you stop speaking to be understood and start speaking to build structure. You stop offering your raw self to strangers and start choosing what to show, when to show it, and how it is framed. Power does not belong to the loud or even the brilliant. It belongs to the composed. And if you can master this one lesson, to never let self-doubt decorate your speech, to never hand over your narrative before it is earned, to never react before you observe, then you will walk into any room and remain the one person no one can quite predict. And in a world that feeds on visibility, that is what makes you powerful, unreadable, unshakable, and far beyond reach. Explaining yourself is quiet surrender. Now we arrive at one of the most deceptive and destructive habits that even the wisest individuals can fall into. It is the act of over-explaining your actions, a habit that disguises itself as clarity, as diplomacy, as kindness. But in reality, it's a quiet surrender of power. You take a bold step, you assert a boundary, you make a choice that unsettles the room, and before the dust has even settled, you feel the urge to explain. I didn't mean it like that. I was only trying to help. I said that because I care. You speak not to express strength, but to manage perception. But here is the warning both Stoic and Machiavellian thought would offer. The moment you over-explain, you stop leading, you start justifying, and in that shift, you move from clarity to doubt. When Marcus Aurelius said that we must be indifferent to what others say about us, he did not mean apathy, he meant sovereignty. If your actions are rooted in principle, if your choices come from a place of reason and integrity, then there is no need to put them on trial in the court of public comfort. Machiavelli would say it even more sharply. The one who explains too much is not seeking truth. He is seeking permission, and the one who seeks permission is already beneath the one he is trying to persuade. That is not wisdom. That is self-sabotage in the name of approval. You must let your decisions speak for themselves. If someone finds your silence unsettling, let them sit with it. If they mistake your composure for coldness, let them wonder. You do not owe them a guided tour of your intent. You owe yourself the discipline to hold your frame. Imagine someone challenges your boundary, asks why you didn't respond sooner, why you didn't explain your distance. You don't soften, you don't unravel. You say simply, "I've started moving differently." No apology, no elaboration. That sentence alone declares self-governance. But the second trap runs even deeper. It is the habit of giving access too quickly. Thinking openness builds connection. You meet someone who seems kind. They ask questions. They nod in the right places. And before you realize it, you are revealing far more than you should. Your past, your fears, your hopes. You feel understood. But what you miss is the test. You offered access before evidence. You assumed loyalty before it was earned. And that is where the danger begins. Because when you give your inner world freely, it no longer feels sacred. It feels available, not treasured, taken. Machiavelli would never equate warmth with trust. He observed before he revealed. He leaked only what served a purpose. A small detail here, a passing comment there. And then he watched. If the other person guarded it, showed respect, protected the confidence, then the gate might open wider. If not, it slammed shut. That is the architecture of discernment. The Stoic does the same. He does not rush to pour out his soul. He watches how others handle what little he gives. Because loyalty is not measured by how someone smiles in your presence. It is measured by how they guard your name in your absence. To lead, to endure, to protect your inner clarity. You must learn to resist the pull of explanation and exposure. Let your silence serve as proof of strength. Let your restraint be the test. And, above all, trust that those who are worthy will never need you to over-justify what you already know to be right. When you move with discipline, you do not need permission, you do not need applause, you simply walk with clarity, and in that walk, the right people will understand, and the wrong ones will remove themselves. That is how you command without forcing, how you lead without chasing, and how you protect your authority in a world eager to strip it away. Trusting pain. Too fast makes you a target. The final mistake may appear the most human, the most sincere, the most compassionate, and yet it is often the most dangerous. It is the decision to trust someone simply because they have shared their pain. They reveal their struggles, their childhood wounds, their regrets, their losses, and suddenly, you feel a connection. You assume that suffering must equal sincerity, that because they have been broken, they would never break another. But both Stoicism and Machiavellian wisdom would urge you to pause. Pain does not purify character, it sharpens perception, and perception, in the hands of the wrong person, becomes manipulation. Just because someone shows you their scars does not mean they will not create new ones. In fact, those who have endured darkness often know exactly how to wear it like a costume. They know how to speak with gravity. They know how to cloak their ambition in sorrow. They understand that vulnerability, when performed, can disarm even the most guarded. Machiavelli would never dismiss another's pain, but he would say this: before you lower your walls, observe how they treat those they no longer need. Listen to how they speak about people who are not in the room. Watch how they handle contradiction. Power is not found in what someone says about themselves. It is revealed in how they act when no one is watching. And if you allow yourself to be swayed by their confessions without testing their character, you are not being noble, you are being exposed. Your kindness, your sincerity, your clarity of spirit, these are strengths. But when offered without discernment, they turn you into a map, Others begin to navigate you with ease. They learn what to say to gain favor. They learn what stories soften your eyes. And suddenly, you are not leading the interaction, you are being led through it. The wise build walls not to keep everyone out, but to require effort, time, and integrity before entry. Machiavelli built no fortresses of stone. His walls were made of silence, mystery, ambiguity, because once someone thinks they understand you completely, they stop respecting your depth. They begin to shape you into a version that fits their needs. And it is not hatred that erodes your influence. It is familiarity. It is predictability. So how do you protect yourself without becoming bitter or detached? You build what the Stoics would call disciplined reserve. You do not abandon truth, but you control its timing. You still feel deeply, but you do not perform your depth on demand. You choose what to reveal with precision, not impulse. In conversation, you offer truths that reveal nothing strategic. You say, "I forget names easily," or "I used to move a lot growing up." These are harmless. They create rapport without exposing your center. Why does it matter? Because in any power dynamic, the one who speaks least holds the strongest hand. And when someone subtly disrespects you, you do not defend yourself with explanations. You reframe. You look them in the eye, calmly, and say, "Interesting. People often speak that way when they're slightly unsettled." You didn't raise your voice, you didn't accuse, but you shifted the energy in the room. That is psychological control, not through dominance, but through stillness and ambiguity. And when drawn into gossip or drama, you do not react with opinion, you respond with a question. What do you think their deeper goal might be? You extract information without offering any. Because the person who knows the most and reveals the least remains unchallenged the longest. You do not reject connection, you refine it. You stop mistaking emotion for trust. You stop offering your truth as a gift to anyone who asks. You make it something rare, something earned. When you begin to do this, something changes. People lean in, they listen more, they speak carefully around you, not because they fear you, but because they cannot predict you. And in that unpredictability, they hesitate, and in hesitation, you hold power. True power is not in force, it is in self-mastery. It is in the mystery you preserve, not the emotion you perform. Let your silence test others, let your boundaries protect you, and let your truth remain valuable by making it scarce. That is how respect becomes inevitable, and that is how you stay untouchable. Embrace the strength that speaks without noise. Stay unreadable, unshakable, and calm. Subscribe if you choose clarity over chaos.